You're a Scorpio. That means no one really knows you. They might think they do, but the truth is, they only see what you let them see. The rest? It's buried, guarded, protected like it's sacred. Because to you, it is. You weren't made to be an open book. You were made to be a locked vault. The kind people are drawn to but can never quite crack. They sense your intensity, your edge, your silence. And while most people try to avoid emotional depth, you live there. That's why your energy either pulls people in or terrifies them. There's no in-between. But under all that stillness, what's really going on? Let's start with what people think they see. A Scorpio is private, powerful, controlled, sometimes intimidating. You move like someone who's already seen everything and decided not to speak on most of it. You give unbothered, but inside, you feel everything, loudly. Because Scorpios don't feel in pieces, they feel in extremes. When you love, it's consuming. When you hurt, it's silent, but it shows up in your eyes. When you're betrayed, you don't explode. You observe, you withdraw, and when you're done, you're done. No warning, no negotiation, just silence. Because that's your real boundary. You don't explain your absence when someone already ignored your presence. Now let's go deeper. Who are you when no one's around? You're someone who watches everything. You've been reading people since you were a kid. Not for fun, for survival. Because early on, you learned that being aware kept you safe. It kept you ahead. It let you know who to trust and who would hurt you. Scorpios usually go through some kind of emotional rupture in childhood, something that made you feel powerless, exposed, or betrayed. And from that moment forward, you started building emotional armor, not just to protect your feelings, but to protect your power. That's why you don't like feeling vulnerable. It reminds you of a version of yourself you swore you'd never go back to. And even if you never talk about it, you remember. You always remember. So what does that do to someone over time? It makes you stronger, sharper, but it also makes you lonely. Because now you trust no one with the whole truth. Not because they're all untrustworthy, but because you've seen what happens when you're fully open, and it broke something in you. So now you test people. You wait. You observe. And you only give more when someone proves they can hold it. But here's the thing. Most people never even know they're being tested. So they fail. And when they fail, you shut down. Then later, they'll say you were cold or too intense, when really, you just needed depth. You needed real. You needed safe. But they couldn't give it. So you stopped asking. This is why people misunderstand you so much. They think you're guarded out of ego. But really, you're guarded out of protection. You had to become this version of you. Because no one was there when you needed someone to protect the softest parts of you. So now, you do it yourself. But even though you're strong, let's talk about what you carry underneath. There's a pain inside you most people don't know exists. It's the pain of having to constantly choose strength over softness. The pain of always having to guess people's motives. The pain of not knowing who's real, even when you want to believe the best. It's the emotional exhaustion of never feeling fully seen, even when you're giving your all. And worst of all, it's the pain of punishing yourself for not seeing it coming, when someone hurts you anyway. Because Scorpio never blames other people first. You blame yourself, you replay it, you overanalyze, you look for what you missed, what you ignored, where you slipped. You want to make sure it never happens again, even if it means hardening a little more. But that's not weakness. That's survival. That's the emotional intelligence no one teaches, but you learned anyway, because you had to. And yet, you still love. You still try. You still hope that maybe one day someone will be able to meet you in that emotional depth and not drown in it. That's the real Scorpio, not the cold version people gossip about, but the loyal, private, passionate soul who feels everything but speaks very little. The one who knows betrayal and still chooses to protect others. The one who's been broken and still shows up whole. That's you. And we're just getting started. Now let's talk about the flaw that holds you back. Because every Scorpio has one. It's not your silence. It's not your anger. It's control. That need to control your emotions, your environment, your people. Because if you're not in control, you don't feel safe. And if you don't feel safe, you disappear. Fast. Even if nobody notices right away. That's what people don't get. You don't need to win. You don't need attention. You just need to feel like you have a grip on the situation. If you don't, you spiral. But silently. On the outside, you're calm, cool, collected. But inside, you're trying to figure out who's lying, what you missed, or what's about to fall apart. And the worst part? Sometimes you become the very thing you were afraid of. You start shutting people out, sabotaging connections, doubting the good. Why? Because if you end it before they hurt you, at least you were the one who chose it. That's your flaw. Scorpios struggle to receive love without suspicion, to let someone in without needing proof they'll never leave, to believe that maybe, just maybe, someone could love you and not use it against you later. Now let's move into your relationships, because this is where your story gets complicated. Scorpios love deeply, but dangerously. Not because you want to ruin people, but because you need to merge. When you love, you give it all. Your time, your body, your energy, your secrets. You want to become one with someone, emotionally, spiritually, physically. But that kind of love, it's not casual, it's not cute, it's consuming. And if the other person isn't ready, they collapse under it or run. And when they do, it confirms your worst fear, that no one can handle your real love. That's why you tend to attract people who are fascinated by you but not built for you. People who like your intensity until they realize what it costs. People who crave your loyalty but can't match it. People who feel safe in your energy but disappear when you finally let them see your truth. And it's not just them. You're not innocent in this either. You ignore red flags just because the connection feels deep. You hold on too long. You forgive people who don't even know what they did wrong, because you never told them. You thought they should just know. And when they don't, you stop speaking. But you don't stop feeling. You just carry the pain in silence, like a scar nobody sees. Let's get real. That love you give, it deserves to be seen. It deserves to be matched. But you'll never get that if you keep settling for people who only like the idea of you. Let's talk compatibility. The signs you usually fall for aren't always the ones who feed you. You tend to be drawn to people who are mysterious, magnetic, or emotionally unavailable because they remind you of you. But the signs who actually see you are the ones who aren't afraid of your silence. They don't fill it. They sit in it with you. They respect your space, but don't run from your storms. They're emotionally deep, spiritually solid, quietly loyal, and most importantly, they don't try to fix you. They just hold you. That's the difference. Because Scorpio doesn't need solutions. You need safety. Now let's talk about what you're built to do. You weren't made to chase trends or play the role. You were made to transform. Every Scorpio has a gift for healing, guiding, or leading through shadows. You understand the darker parts of life because you've lived them. That makes you magnetic in a way that can't be faked. You could be a therapist, a strategist, a coach, a creative, a mystic, a surgeon, a speaker. but the core of your power. It's in your ability to see what others miss, to feel what others hide, to speak what others are afraid to say. That's not just intuition, that's your purpose. But be careful, because when you're not in alignment, you'll take that power and use it to control. You'll micromanage, manipulate. You'll try to force outcomes instead of trusting the flow. You'll push away anyone who gets too close. You'll burn bridges, then feel guilty later. But never say anything, because that's the hardest thing for a Scorpio to do. Speak pain out loud. Apologize while still feeling hurt. Say, "I miss you," without needing the upper hand. But when you are in alignment, you're one of the most impactful people to ever exist in someone's life. Because you don't do surface level. You don't do half love. You don't do fake connections. You're all in, or you're out. And that's what makes you unforgettable. Let's talk about the misunderstood energy. Because Scorpio might be one of the most misread signs in the entire zodiac. People call you mysterious, but they don't realize that mystery comes from trauma. They say you're too intense, but that intensity, it's just emotion you were never allowed to show. And when they say you're manipulative, half the time you were just trying to protect your peace without having to explain why. You're not scary. You're just aware. You pick up on things other people ignore. Tone shifts, eye movements, gut instincts. You know when someone's lying before they say a word. You know when something's off, even if no one else notices. And your silence? It's not passive aggression. It's restraint, because the old version of you used to react. Now you watch, and people don't know how to handle someone who feels everything but doesn't flinch. They mistake your stillness for indifference. But that's not what it is. You just don't waste your energy anymore. You've learned that not everything deserves your explanation, your defense, or your correction. Sometimes it's better to just let people think what they want and move in silence. But let's shift the energy, because all of that pain and protection, it has a purpose. Scorpios are built to transform, not just others, but themselves. Your glow-up isn't just about looks or money. It's about finally becoming the version of you that doesn't flinch when life tries to shake you. So what does your glow-up actually look like? It starts when you stop living for defense, when you stop trying to predict betrayal and start focusing on peace, when you let people fall away without needing closure, when you stop explaining your absence and just let your silence speak for itself. That's when your presence changes. You become magnetic in a new way, not because you're trying, but because you don't need anything anymore. People feel the shift. You don't chase. You don't beg. You attract. And not just lovers, but opportunities, peace, and power. You walk into rooms with certainty instead of suspicion. You lead with clarity instead of control. You forgive without reopening the door. You express your truth without calculating the risk. That's your glow-up. It's not loud, it's grounded. And when you hit it, you become unstoppable. Because nothing outside of you holds power anymore. You finally feel like you're back in your body, back in your own voice. You feel safe, not because the world is softer, but because you finally are. Now let's talk about timing. 2025 isn't random. For most Scorpios, this year feels like a pivot, a slow but powerful redefinition of what you actually want, not just what you've been surviving. And energetically, it's setting the tone for what the next 3 to 4 years will feel like. You're currently in your personal year 2, if you were born in November 2006. That means you just came out of a year 1 reset. You've likely been letting go of old chapters, identities, or connections that don't fit anymore. And now you're entering a year that's all about patience, connection, and alignment. This is a year where you'll need to listen more than move, where quiet decisions will shape major outcomes later. In a year two, the universe slows you down, not to punish, but to prepare. If you push too hard this year, you'll get resistance. But if you learn to trust the flow, 2026 will take you places your mind hasn't even imagined yet. So here's how to work with this energy. If someone pulls back, let them. If a door closes, don't chase. If life feels still, stop trying to make noise. You're not falling behind. You're being aligned. Your power in 2025 isn't in forcing outcomes. It's in choosing peace on purpose. It's in letting your energy speak louder than your actions. It's in making moves that no one sees coming, because you've been doing the internal work when nobody was watching. And if you're already in your mid-20s or older, this still applies. Your best years always follow your most uncomfortable ones. That's the Scorpio path. Fall, rebuild, rise. It never comes easy, but when it lands with legacy. Scorpio thrives in years that require pressure, emotional maturity, and full spiritual presence. So even if it's quiet right now, don't underestimate what's being built in the dark. Let's get honest. What happens if you don't change? If you keep shrinking, you'll keep becoming harder, colder, more disconnected, not from the world, but from yourself. You'll keep overthinking people's intentions until you convince yourself no one's real. You'll keep testing people until they walk away, and then punish yourself for being right. You'll keep creating storms to feel in control, just so you're not caught off guard again. You'll attract surface-level connections that can't hold your depth. You'll give loyalty to people who never deserved your silence. You'll waste time playing safe with a life that's supposed to be transformational. You'll stay surviving when you were built to rebirth. And the worst part? You'll blame yourself for not feeling more. You'll keep saying, "I'm just tired," when really, you're emotionally malnourished. You're starving for truth, for connection, for something that doesn't make you question your worth. But if you don't change, you'll keep quieting that hunger. You'll call it peace. You'll call it control. But deep down, you'll feel it. The ache of staying in a version of yourself that's long overdue for evolution. Now let's flip it. Let's talk about what happens if you do evolve. If you stop waiting for others to get it. If you stop letting betrayal rewrite your worth. If you stop holding on to the version of you that only knows pain as a compass. Here's what unlocks. Your intuition becomes your weapon, not your wound. You don't overanalyze anymore. You just know. You don't question people's energy. You feel it, decide, and move. No more explaining your boundaries. No more guilt after saying no. You just stop overgiving to unproven people. Your silence shifts. It's no longer a defense, it's power. You're not hiding anymore. You're observing. Intentionally. You don't fall for words anymore. You wait for energy. You stop falling for chaos that looks like chemistry. You stop being afraid to speak. Not because you need to be heard, but because you're done pretending your truth isn't important. You stop asking the universe to give you strength, and start realizing you already are the strength. Your relationships get cleaner. You no longer confuse emotional highs and lows for love. You seek peace, not because you're numb, but because you finally know what it feels like to be seen. You build trust slowly. You release people without resentment. You hold space for people who actually hold it back. And your energy, it becomes untouchable. You become the version of yourself people can't shake. Not because you're the loudest, but because you're the most aligned. You walk into rooms with peace, not because nothing's broken, but because nothing inside you is begging for validation anymore. You wake up and realize you never needed revenge. You just needed your power back. And now, you have it. Here's the truth, Scorpio. You are not your silence. You are not your trauma. You are not the version of you that had to be cold just to survive. You are the rebirth, the phoenix, the transformation itself. You are the before and after, the wake-up call, the proof that someone can be completely broken and still come back stronger. So if no one's told you this yet, this is your permission to stop performing strength and start embodying it, to stop waiting for safety and start creating it, to stop seeking love from people who've never even loved themselves. You're a Scorpio. You weren't made to blend in. You were made to rise again and again. Not softer, not quieter, but wiser, sharper, free.